Last time Sri Aurobindo showed us Savitri after this new state of silence has come on her, this emptiness in which it is all as if all her individuality has disappeared, and as if even this vestige, this violet trace, could vanish completely. And that doesn't depend on her, that depends on some high reality which she can't grasp or understand. And she doesn't disappear. It's as if there's a waiting time in which many possibilities are seen. So Sri Aurobindo shows us Savitri living in the little hermitage in the forest's heart, and nobody notices anything different in her. The way she moves and speaks, outwardly everything, there's nothing to notice the state that she is in. But inwardly she is living this state of a figure of unreal reality. Very strange state of complete peace, passivity, emptiness. So I'm going to read on from there. Yet all was not extinct in this deep loss. The being travelled not towards nothingness. There was some high, surpassing secrecy. And when she sat alone with Shraddhavan, her moveless mind with his that searched and strove, in the hush of the profound and intimate night, she turned to the face of a veiled, voiceless truth, hid in the dumb recesses of the heart, or waiting beyond the last peak climbed by thought. Unseen itself, it sees the struggling world and prompts our quest, but cares not to be found. Out of that distant vast came a reply. Something unknown, unreached, inscrutable, sent down the messages of its bodiless light, cast lightning flashes of a thought not ours, crossing the immobile silence of her mind. In its might of irresponsible sovereignty, it seized on speech to give those flamings shape, made beat the heart of wisdom in a word, and spoke immortal things through mortal lips. Or, listening to the sages of the woods, in question and in answer, broke from her high, strange revealings, impossible to men. Something or someone secret and remote took hold of her body for his mystic use. Her mouth was seized to channel ineffable truths, knowledge unthinkable found an utterance. Astonished by a new enlightenment, invaded by a streak of the Absolute, they marveled at her, for she seemed to know what they had only glimpsed at times afar. These thoughts were formed not in her listening brain. Her vacant heart was like a stringless harp. Impassive, the body claimed not its own voice, but let the luminous greatness through it pass. A dual power at being's occult poles still acted, nameless and invisible. Her divine emptiness was their instrument. Inconscient nature dealt with the world it had made, and using still the body's instruments, slipped through the conscious void she had become. The superconscient mystery through that void missioned its words to touch the thoughts of men. You will start, Rosa? Yeah.
Yes. Yet all was not extinct in this deep loss. The being traveled not towards nothingness.
Yes. So he has been describing a state in which Savitri seems to have lost everything, everything that we would identify as a person in her consciousness. The body is still there, the body is still functioning, nobody notices any difference, but in the consciousness she feels as if everything has been taken away so that only the body is left. You know? And she has a feeling that the individual will die and then the universe will disappear, at least for her. You know? And once the individual has gone, once the universal has gone, then even the transcendent will also be gone, or it will be something almost unreal. And yet, not everything was extinct in that deep loss. So, everything seems to have gone away, been taken away. But he says not everything was extinct. She has this sense of everything being taken away, but the being traveled not towards nothingness. There's still this violet trace. We saw the painting, no? And that doesn't dissolve. It's not that she is feeling herself dissolving. Still that violet trace is there that seems as if it could be the basis for something new to happen. So her being, the being that she feels, doesn't travel towards nothingness. Martin?
There was some high surpassing secrecy, and when she sat alone with Shraddhavan, her moveless mind with his that searched and strove, in the hush of the profound and intimate night, she turned to the face of a veiled, voiceless truth, hid in the dumb recesses of the heart, awaiting beyond the last peak blind by thought. Unseen itself, it sees the struggling world, and prompts our quest, but cares not to be found. Out of that distant vast came a reply.
So she feels that something still exists, has not become extinct. It is a high secrecy, something that keeps itself hidden, that remains secret. And it's very high, it's surpassing, it's going beyond everything else. So in the night, when she is sitting alone with Shraddhavan, her mind doesn't move. Her mind is moveless, unmoving. But he is still like us, searching and striving. His mind is turning in the hush, in the silence of the profound and intimate night. Sometimes in the night when everything falls silent, there's a sense of something very, very deep and very, very close. Somebody who is intimate with you, is very close to you. Or you may have very intimate feelings which you don't want to share with anybody else. No? So at that time, in the silence, Savitri turns her awareness to the face. It's as if it has a face, and yet that face is veiled. It is a truth with a capital T that is voiceless. It does not express itself. Either that truth is hidden in the dumb recesses of the heart. A recess, it's a small, like a cave or a space of a bigger space. So it's as if our heart, if we look deep into it, there may be secret places, these dumb, silent recesses, these secret places in the heart. Or she may not feel that truth there deep in the heart. She may feel it waiting beyond the last peak, as if there's a high mountain. Thought in its different levels can become higher and higher and higher, but beyond wherever thought can go, there's this secrecy waiting. That secrecy is unseen itself. We can't see it. But it sees. It sees everything that goes on in our struggling world. And it is encouraging us to seek it and to seek progress and to seek development. No? But although it encourages us to seek, it does not want to be found. It doesn't care to be found. It chooses not to be found. But when she turns towards that vast truth, that high surpassing secrecy, out of that distant vast came a reply. She feels a response. When I read these words, I think of Sri Aurobindo's Gayatri mantra. We listen to it sometimes, no? Om Tat Savitur Varam Rupam Jyoti Parasya Dhimahi Yanna Satyena Dipayet. Let us meditate on that highest form of the sun, or Sri Aurobindo says most auspicious or best form of the sun. The light of the Supreme. That's the most auspicious form of the sun. There are many forms that the sun takes. Our physical sun, that is the source of all material energy and movement in our solar system, is the physical form, but there are other forms of that sun. But the best form, the highest form, if we meditate on that, it will illumine us with the truth. So to me it is as if she is meditating on that light of the Supreme, which will illumine with the truth. No? And something, she can't see that light of the Supreme, it keeps itself hidden, but she feels that it is there, and a reply comes to her from there when she turns towards it. Let us meditate on that supreme form of the sun of consciousness. No? The sun of consciousness force, its supreme form. So that can be found hidden in the dumb recesses of the heart, very, very deep within, or very, very high above the last mountain peak that thought can reach. Beyond that is that light of the Supreme. Would you read, Mi Hong?
Something unknown, unread, uninscrutable, sent down the messages of its boundless light, cast lightning flashes of a thought, not ours, crossing the immobile silence of her mind.
Let's pause there. So this is the reply that comes out of that distant vastness. Something unknown. She doesn't know what it is. She hasn't reached it. It's inscrutable. If somebody is inscrutable, you never know what they are thinking. We can't understand their face. May not be expressionless, but you can't read that expression. What are they thinking? What are they feeling? So something that's inscrutable, it is puzzling and mysterious to us. So this something can't be read. But it does, in reply to Savitri's turning towards it, it does send down the messages of its bodiless light. That light has no form. It sends down lightning flashes, just like when there's a storm, flashes of lightning, of a thought which is not like our human thought. No? These flashes of light, of a different kind of thought cross the immobile silence of her mind. Flashes of illumination, of revealing experience. Ganga Lakshmi.
In its might of irresponsible sovereignty, it sees on speech to give those flaming shade. Met heat the heart of wisdom in the world, and spoke immortal things through mortal lips.
Yes. So in its might, in the power of that that something, its power has irresponsible sovereignty. Sovereignty is what a king has, a ruler has. He can command and things will be done. He has mastery and control. The word irresponsible is normally a negative word. If we think that somebody's irresponsible, they are doing things without thinking about the consequences. They are not taking responsibility for their own actions. Here, I think Sri Aurobindo uses it to convey that power, it has a control. It doesn't need to think about the consequences. It is a truth. It can just do things spontaneously, irresponsibly, with irresponsible sovereignty. And that power seizes hold on speech. It makes Savitri speak. It makes her say things to give a form to those lights which it sends down, those flashes of lightning. It can make a single word living with the heart of wisdom. Something that she says, a simple statement, seems to vibrate with the power of wisdom. Not because of Savitri, but because of that power which speaks through her, which makes her speak immortal things through mortal lips. She uses her human lips, her human mouth, but she's saying things which are immortal and beyond the grasp of human beings. Sergei.
Listening to the sages of the woods, in question and in answer brought from her, by strange revealings impossible to learn, something or someone secret and remote took hold of her body, of his mystic use. Her mouth was seized to channel ineffable truths, knowledge, unthinkable form, and utterance.
Yes. So he doesn't say when this other word spoke, when she spoke these immortal things through mortal lips, but he says sometimes those sages, those hermits who are living round about, they gather together, perhaps they will have discussions and debates about their intuitions, the knowledge that they've gained through their tapasya. So Savitri also is there. She goes to listen. But sometimes when she asks a question or gives an answer, It's as if something comes out, it breaks from her. High, strange revealings, impossible to men, as if she asks and says things that no human being could normally say. No? And this happens because something or someone, secret and remote, at high truth, is taking hold of Savitri's body to use it for his mystic purpose. So her mouth gets seized to channel ineffable truths, truths which cannot be expressed really. What is ineffable, it can't be put into words, and yet something does get expressed through her mouth. And knowledge unthinkable, that the mind could never reach such knowledge, it gets uttered, it gets spoken in words. It found an utterance, it could be expressed. She is not thinking, she is not sharing anything, but it's as if suddenly she finds herself uttering words. That high secret power has channeled something through her. Yes, Sergei?
It was the last two sentences, it was similar as Shraddhavan did a speech when I left of him only due to commandment, that's all.
I don't think it was quite that. I mean, in that case, he didn't know what he was going to say and something came and spoke. Perhaps there was something of this, but he has an aphorism where he mentions intending to speak something, but then something from above seizes hold of him and he finds himself saying things, he says, at which reason trembles. It's as if, that how could I say something like that? Of course, that can happen, that this may happen to us, that something comes up from below, and we find ourselves suddenly saying things, and we think, I should not have said that. No? But here, what is being described is being seized by a higher power, not a lower one. Lady sitting behind Sergei, what is your name, please? Would you like to read?
Yeah. Astonished by a new enlightenment, invaded by a streak of the Absolute, they marveled at her, for she seemed to know what they had only glimpsed at times afar.
Thank you. So I think this refers to the sages of the woods. They are all gathered there. There's this simple young housewife sitting and listening, but when she speaks in this way, when these words come out through her, those sages, they are astonished at a new enlightenment. They see things and understand things in a new way. No? They feel that they've been invaded by a streak of the absolute, like a flash of lightning from some absolute truth. So then they marvel. They are very, very surprised and astonished at her, that how can she know things that they have only glimpsed, sometimes at a great distance. They feel that the things she is expressing are full of light and full of truth, and they reveal things that they've had faint glimpses of at a distance, sometimes, rarely. Afar means far away, at a distance. Dhanalakshmi.
These thoughts were formed not in her listening brain. Her vacant part was like a stringless harp, impassive the body climbed, not its own voice, but let the luminous greatness through it pass.
Yes, so this is again emphasizing that this is, Savitri is not identifying herself with the body, with the words, no? These thoughts which get expressed, they haven't formed in her brain. Her brain is only listening and hearing them. No? And her heart is empty of all feeling and emotion. He says it is like a stringless harp, as if the heart is a musical instrument which has strings which can be played. And traditionally we speak of the heart strings being cut when all our attachments, our feelings are dissolved. No? So her heart is like a harp which has no string, no music can be played on that. It is absolutely silent. No? And the body doesn't feel identified. The body is impassive. It doesn't react. It doesn't identify itself with these things. It doesn't claim its own voice. It doesn't think, oh, that's me speaking. No? It just allows the luminous greatness to pass through it. It's acting like a mouthpiece or a channel. At the back, sir, you will read.
The dual power of being applied to still acted a nameless and invisible.
Next line.
A divine emptiness was their instrument.
Yes, now we've stopped at the full stop. So a dual power. One power which takes two forms or aspects. And these aspects are at the secret hidden poles of being, of existence. We have a north pole and a south pole. They are opposite, no? They are mark the opposite ends of the earth. So in a similar way, at opposite ends of existence, there's a dual power acting. One aspect of it at one pole, and another aspect of it at another pole. So that dual power is still active, although it is nameless. She can't put any label on it, and it is invisible. Her divine emptiness was their instrument, the instrument for those two aspects of that nameless, invisible power. And in the next sentence, he's going to tell us what those two aspects are. Would you read, please, Mum?
Inconstant nature direct with the word is had made, and using still the body instruments, stripped through the conscious voice she had become. The superconstant mystery through that word, nascent in word to touch the thought of man.
Yes, thank you. We'll stop at the full stop. So, this dual power, one aspect is inconscient nature. All this nature that we feel is not conscious, it's just acting mechanically. Inconscient nature, just this power, this aspect of that one power, goes on dealing with this world that it had made. It goes on using the body's instruments, the eyes, the ears, the brain, the limbs, all the different parts of the bodies. And this power slips through this conscious void, this emptiness that Savitri has become. So slipping through her emptiness, it makes the body act and speak and do what needs to be done. At the other end, there's the superconscient mystery. Inconscient is below our awareness. What is superconscient is so high that we can't grasp it. There's a great mystery. And through that same emptiness, that emptiness which Savitri has become, that superconscient mystery missioned its word. When you mission something, you send it out to do a work. Usually it's somebody. No? But here it missions its word. It's sending its word, its speech through her. And through her speech, it touches the thoughts of men, of those people who hear her. So this is the dual power. It's one power. It expresses itself as inconscient nature, but its true nature is as a superconscient mystery. And both those aspects are working through this passive emptiness that Savitri has become. Nature is making her body deal with the world around so that nobody notices anything different about her behavior. And then these strange high revealings that suddenly come out, that get expressed through her, they're coming from the superconscient mystery. Joel.
As yet this great impersonal speech was rare, but now the unmoving wide spiritual space in which her mind survived tranquil and bare, admitted a traveler from the cosmic breath. Her thought came true, draped as an outer voice.
Yes. So, this great impersonal speech, when something is spoken through Savitri without any personal participation from her, this happens only rarely, not often. But now there's a new development. This wide, unmoving spiritual space, this still emptiness, this silence, in which her mind, her conscious mind, is still surviving, completely quiet, completely bare, with no feature, no expression. This emptiness admitted, allowed to enter a traveler from the cosmic breadths, from the vast universal spaces. Some thought came. You remember before, thoughts were coming like that. And she had put this will for silence, and then as if they were ships approaching a port and suddenly meeting a bar, they would sink in the sea until her mind became completely silent. So now this is the first time that since that complete silence fell on her mind, that something has entered into her being. This thought came through, draped as an outer voice. It takes the appearance, or it's appearing disguised as a voice coming from outside, as if she is hearing it. Today we will not find out more about that voice. Sri Aurobindo will tell us what it says and what its effect is in the next section, which we'll read next week. But now he tells how it comes to her. You will read?
It called not for the witness of the mind. It spoke not to the hushed receiving heart. It came direct to the pure perception's seat, as only center now of consciousness. If center could be where all seemed only space.
Thank you. So this thought that comes disguised as an outer voice, it's not appealing to her mind. It doesn't call for her mind to be aware of it. And it's not speaking to her heart. Instead, it's traveling direct to this center of pure perception. This was the only capacity that was left to her. So this is coming right to what is now the center of her consciousness. It's the only center in her consciousness. No mind, no heart, only this seat of pure perception. That pure perception hears an outer voice. So he says, can there be a center where everything seemed to be only empty space? If there's no limit, if there's no borderline, where can the center be? And yet, within herself, she feels this center of pure perception, which is receiving perceptions. Would you read, please?
No more shutting by bodies, walls and gates, but being a circle without circumference, orderly now surpassed of cosmic bonds, and more spread into infinity.
Yes, let's pause there. So he's saying, how can she have a center? And yet there seems to be this a center, at least, of this space, which is within her consciousness. And now that consciousness that is not shut in inside the body's walls and gates, her being is spread out. It's like a circle with no circumference, with no limit. Out from this center of pure perception, her being is spreading out. And already it is now going beyond all the bounds of the universe, going beyond all cosmic bounds. And it's spreading wider and wider and wider into infinity. Venkat.
This being was its own unbounded will, a will without form or feature or circumstance. It had no ground, no wall, no roof of thought, yet saw itself and looked on all around, in a silence, motionless and illimitable.
Yes. So now Savitri's being, this being, was its own world without any boundary or limit. It's a world with no forms, no features or qualities, no circumstances, no happenings or events. It has no ground, there's no base to it, there's no wall, there's no roof of thought. and yet it's aware of itself and of everything around it in a silence motionless and illimitable. We can try to imagine a state like this. Ellen.
There was no person there, no strength of mind, no seat of feeling on which beat events, or objects wrought and shaped reactions stress.
Yes. So he's repeating, he's emphasizing to remind us there's no person, there's no Savitri, there's no centered mind, there's no seat of feeling and emotion on which things are happening and causing a reaction. And there are no objects that have been made. And these things would shape some stress of reaction, but there's nothing like that. Praveen.
There was no motion in the inner world. All was still and even infinity. In her, the unseen, the unknown, waited his hour.
Yes. So no movement in her inner world. Everything is still, unmoving, even, without features, infinite, limitless. So in her, that unseen, unknown reality is waiting for the time to do something, waiting his hour to act, to express something. Yet all was not extinct in this deep loss. The being travelled not towards nothingness. There was some high surpassing secrecy, and when she sat alone with Shraddhavan, her moveless mind with his that searched and strove, in the hush of the profound and intimate night, she turned to the face of a veiled, voiceless truth, hid in the dumb recesses of the heart, or waiting beyond the last peak climbed by thought. Unseen itself, it sees the struggling world and prompts our quest, but cares not to be found. Out of that distant vast came a reply. Something unknown, unreached, inscrutable, sent down the messages of its bodiless light, cast lightning flashes of a thought not ours, crossing the immobile silence of her mind. In its might of irresponsible sovereignty, it seized on speech to give those flamings shape, made beat the heart of wisdom in a word, and spoke immortal things through mortal lips. Or, listening to the sages of the woods, in question and in answer broke from her high, strange revealings impossible to men. Something or someone secret and remote took hold of her body for his mystic use. Her mouth was seized to channel ineffable truths. Knowledge unthinkable found an utterance. Astonished by a new enlightenment, invaded by a streak of the Absolute, they marvelled at her, for she seemed to know what they had only glimpsed at times afar. These thoughts were formed not in her listening brain. Her vacant heart was like a stringless harp. Impassive, the body claimed not its own voice, but let the luminous greatness through it pass. A dual power at being's occult poles still acted, nameless and invisible. Her divine emptiness was their instrument. Inconscient nature dealt with the world it had made, and using still the body's instruments, slipped through the conscious void she had become. The superconscient mystery through that void missioned its word to touch the thoughts of men. As yet, this great impersonal speech was rare. But now the unmoving, wide spiritual space in which her mind survived, tranquil and bare, admitted a traveller from the cosmic breadths. A thought came through, draped as an outer voice. It called not for the witness of the mind. It spoke not to the hushed receiving heart. It came direct to the pure perception's seat, an only centre now of consciousness, if centre could be where all seemed only space. No more shut in by body's walls and gates. Her being a circle without circumference, already now surpassed all cosmic bounds, and more spread into infinity. This being was its own unbounded world, a world without form or feature or circumstance. It had no ground, no wall, no roof of thought, yet saw itself and looked on all around in a silence motionless and illimitable. There was no person there, no centered mind, no seat of feeling on which beat events, or objects wrought and shaped reactions, stress. There was no motion in this inner world. All was a still and even infinity. In her, the unseen, the unknown, waited his hour.